No problem.
All right. Thank you, Prof. So this is Professor Israel Olaide.
I'm not a professor, please. I'm not even a doctor yet.
I mean, you will still be a professor someday.
I'm not even a doctor yet.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I know it's been a couple of times we've spoken about you trying to get time for us to talk about your journey through the EB-2 NIW. So I just want to use this opportunity to say thank you. I really appreciate your time and your
No
presence
problem.
here today.
A pleasure.
Awesome.
Anytime.
So for everyone watching us right now, I have known Israel since you came to the US in 2018, right?
Yeah,
That
so
is correct. Yeah.
6 years now.
Yeah, it's been a while, man. My goodness. So I've known him for a while. We actually lived in the same apartment, and he's a big man, doing his degree. And here I am having the pleasure to interview him for he getting his permanent residency through the EB-2 NIW. I always would like to start with just few introduction about yourself for people who don't know you. Just a brief background about yourself, what you studied here in the US, and what you're currently doing.
Yeah, basically, I'm from Nigeria and I've been here since like 2018, like you said earlier. And I'm actually in a PhD program at SLU and my fourth year right now. And basically, chemistry, that's what I'm studying, that's my profession. And my background was in biochemistry. Then when I came here, I switched to chemistry. Then I met Mr. Richmond SIE when I was doing like master's chemistry. Then I started a PhD in chemistry. And currently that's what I'm doing right now. And ever since I met him, we've been always in get in touch. We talk every time, and yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Stop
basically
calling me
about
Mr. Richmond, by the way. Yeah,
me.
here's the thing. If you ever
Yeah.
call a Ghanaian person like you start Mr. with his first name, it's totally
I know we started the last name, but I don't know. I just kind of got used to calling it your first name, Mr.
I know you've called him Mr. Richmond for ages, but no, yeah, Israel is a very smart guy, and very helpful.
Are we?
And I know you are. And before we even start talking about this whole process, again, let me just use the opportunity to say thank you because I know when I was moving to my house, you were there for me. It was just you and I in a big truck. So he's a very hardworking, smart, and very kind person. But anyway, so back to the main agenda. I know you have gone through this route, and actually, it's because of you and Doc that
Yeah.
gave me the right information and the courage to be able to also seek this permanent residency using the EB-2 NIW.
Yeah. It was
So
because of the work I started.
I know, right? I know, and you also provided with some of the documentation you had, and I happened to review, and it was just like straight A's in your application. Like it's obvious you're gonna get it. But I'm not kind of exaggerating here. It is true. Your profile was superb, and I was not surprised. You got approved. But here's what I want the viewers
Lucky.
to understand. In your background. So first of all, what was that turning point in your life you felt, okay, I need to get my permanent residency sorted out? Because as you mentioned, you are still pursuing your PhD in your fourth year. And between you and me, I know you already have your green card, which is awesome, superb. So what was that turning point in your life that you felt, I need to start working on my permanent residency?
Yeah, I think so when I finished with SIE, right, and that was in 2020, I didn't know what I was gonna do. Not like I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was in between either going into an industry or like, starting a PhD and everything. So like I applied to some field skills for my PhD, and when I got admission, I was like, okay, let me just start this. But during the struggle of my some of my friends looking for a job, applying for OPT, applying for this, applying for CPT, stuff like that. I have a friend that did NIW, so I talked to him about it, and he told me, "Oh, you can just give it a try because I have all the requirements. They need like higher degree stuff like that." And I just finished SIE then, so I thought about it, like, okay, if I start a PhD program, hopefully before I finish the PhD program, if I can get my status, that would actually be a good thing. So I don't have to worry about this whole situation of OPT when I'm done my program. So my first year, second semester, I just, spoke to the Anthony's and Ellis Potter. That was what I used. I spoke to Ellis Potter and talked to them, sent my documents, sent my CV and my immigration status. And he told me, oh, yeah, you qualified. You can actually do this for you. And that's how I actually started and just. So at first I was like, you know what, let me just try my luck. Let me make an inquiry if something I really want to do. Or just see. Then as soon as they told me I can go ahead, that was what actually initiated the whole process. And
Wow. Wow. And you just mentioned you started when you basically had started your PhD program in your first year. That was when you took
yeah,
the initiative to do it.
yeah.
So you were kind of very, the word is not even proactive. You were extremely proactive because you had like 3 years ahead of you
I
and you
was being
did.
calculative. I was
Okay.
being And another thing, when I started my PhD program, I actually thought of just doing 2 years and graduate the master's out. So I was like, okay, let me see how fast I can get this first. But over time, I was like, I'm just gonna continue with the program. So
That is super smart. That is super smart. And I mean, to anyone watching us, and I always advocate if you are in your PhD program, do not wait to finish your PhD. You can start at any point in time in your PhD program.
yeah,
That,
exactly.
that begs the question. So, what was your background? What was that kind of qualification you had for Ellis Porter to say, "Hey, we will take on your case"?
So basically, when I was in Nigeria, I was working in doing the academics environment. So I was kind of used to like academics environment. And I had a master's degree in Nigeria before I came here. And funnest thing is, I actually used my master's from Nigeria to apply for the NIW. So
Oh,
like so the basic one they used was the first master's. They didn't really consider the second master's because they just didn't do one higher degree. So I could have used the SIU one too as well, but I just used the Nigerian one and the SIU and put it together. But they considered the first one first, which I had first. So like because I've been in the academics environment, I got some 1 or 2 publications back home in Nigeria. So like those requirements, your contribution to your field. And I know it's kind of different though, because nowadays I think you can get some references as well, you know. So contribution to your field and higher degree, and also what's gonna be the impact of your degree, towards your field. So basically, like the higher degree, I got a master's, then they have few publications, which are because I've been in academic environment. And the third one, my impact, I feel like I was in a PhD program. I had to tell my PhD program. So like these are things I want to do in my research. These are things I love to do, which are actually going to impact the progress of research in my field. And those are the 3 requirements, which are fulfilled. And that's why I just decided to go ahead with the application.
wow. What was your what did you study in Nigeria for your
Biochemistry.
biochemistry?
Yeah.
And I know you did chemistry at SIUA.
Yeah, chemistry at SIU when I came.
Wow, that is interesting. You
I was
talked
a total
about
switch, but I had to like cope over time. So,
no, no, that is interesting. So you talk about your research. You had been in academia, basically when
yeah.
you were in Nigeria for a while, and you had some publications. So, how many publications did you have, and how many citations did you have when you started this process?
So when I started this process, I wasn't having a lot, like 8, because I was working to a lot of prince. I was never a first author because I was a graduate assistant to when I was working but I was working to a lot of professors, a lot of doctors. So I was doing quite a lot of things for them, like the daily lab jobs, so we did a lot of rat study, animal study. So like most of the animal study, I was the one involved, helping them out because the professors were busy. So they called the graduate assistant, hey, Israel, you wanna do this with the rats? So I was doing the dirty rat jobs. And that's very good. Actually, I will always say, like at the start of your career, try and make as much as connection you can, because over time it's going to help you. Then I didn't even know that was going to help me over time. Like over time I was like, wow, I'm glad I did this in my earlier days. So I would say, like, as a career, you want to try and make connection with a lot of people, things you can do for people you work with. That's very important as well. You can get recommendation from them. And yeah, so I did those. So I got some publications from them. Then citations were quite, I think about 20 something citations, which is,
Wow.
you know, over time. So that was like within space of 6 years or
Oh,
so.
wow.
Yeah, because I started like 2015 or so. Yeah, 2015 when I started my master's then in Nigeria. So
That
yeah.
is interesting. It's very funny because sometimes you take an action, you don't really know the future, how it's
Yeah.
going to impact you. Like, for example, you started research work when you were back home. And
Yeah.
when it was time for you to put in the application, it became very important for your approval. I'm sure back then it's like,
Yeah,
let
for
me
my approval,
open.
I felt like I was doing my job as a graduate assistant. That was what I felt. I was like, I'm just doing my job. Okay, time for rats, dosing for drugs. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm just gonna do it. Like, but I didn't really know like it's gonna be something that's gonna be very impactful later on in life. But
No,
yeah, so
it is
that's
a
why I
good.
always try and make the connections, try and work with other people that are like more in your field. The little you can get from them is very important. And I won't say you should have just one mentor. You can have multiple mentors. There's nothing wrong with that, you know. So that's
No,
gonna help over
that's a
time.
good advice. That's a good advice, especially with making sure the people you work around with, you create an impact. You create that kind of memory. Like you were, we technically were like you're doing a dirty job at that time, and you felt maybe at a point you felt like, why is it always me? But now when it was time
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
put in the application, it was easy for them to give you some recommendation, like attesting to how hardworking you are and the impact you had created when you were working with them. So I think this is something people should take into consideration. In my case, even when I had not really decided to go through this route, because the company I'm working with currently, they sponsor green card.
oh, okay.
But then again, yeah, I felt, I mean, I should take things in my own hand, because right now even the things have changed a lot, and there's a lot of
Totally.
hold on it. So it's always
Yeah,
good to
yeah,
keep
I heard
thinking.
about it.
Yeah, I know, right? But the point I'm trying to make is when I started working, and I've always been a huge fan of making good connections, and I did not actually think about the future impact. So, for example, when I joined my company, I was very active, like going beyond, and I got recognition for that. And apparently, it was one of my major strongholds when I was putting the application on LinkedIn. I randomly connect with people in my space just to talk about what is happening on the other end. And funny
Yeah, that's
enough,
right.
when it was time for me to get recommendation, they were so quick and happy to give me good recommendation. And you'd be surprised the kind of things they wrote for me. So I think this is a valuable lesson to everyone, that build good connections now, because the truth is you might not know in the future how this is
Yeah,
going to be very impactful for your case. So that is a
yeah.
good advice, and thank you for sharing that with us.
Um,
Yeah, I think another follow-up question I have in your process was, what can you say actually stood out in your requirements? So there's advanced degree. Of course, I am not sure you had that 10 years working experience, but you had
yeah.
good publication, good citations, and you have numerous achievement or awards. What exactly stood out that you can pinpoint? Okay, I have like 26 citations that stood out. Was there something that stood out in your
Yeah.
evidence?
From the requirements, I think most likely it's gonna be the public insurance. Because at the end of the day, the friend that spoke to me about the NIW, when he did this, they actually had asked for reference and everything. And he has some publications too, but not as much as I do. I think I had like couple, like 5, 6, very close to how much I have as well. But when I applied and I asked them, oh, do I need a reference? They were like, no, you don't need a reference. I was like, but my friend, I mailed them, I was like, but my friend is reference. I can talk to like some of my, senior colleagues I work with. They was like, no, you don't need a reference here. Go with your because of your publications at the out. I was like, okay, that's good. So I feel publication is actually the one of the major things that actually stood me out. But I think apart from that, like I said, my friend, the recommendations were actually, something very important that actually backed him up as well for my friend. So I think, you shouldn't be skeptical about it if you now have a lot of publications. If you can get good recommenders, let them reference you, and definitely gonna work out.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And recently, I did an interview with another person, a friend of mine, who had gone through the process and never had publications. Of course, no citations.
Yeah,
She had good, diverse evidence to support her case, like volunteer work and stuff like that. So, to your
yeah,
point, I mean, everybody's case is unique, but there's always that kind of fundamental evidence you need to provide. If you don't have a lot of citations and publications, of course, recommendation will be a good add-ons to your case.
yeah.
Yeah, so that brings to mind another question regarding the process. A lot of people I speak to, thinking about a proposed endeavor is really a challenge.
Yeah,
And I felt the same, like, right, like, okay, you meet the requirements. Of course, the lawyers will ask you, will send you documentations you need to fill out.
yeah, yeah.
how was that a challenge for you, and how did you overcome trying to get to the specificity of your proposing there, but this is what I want to do? Because I feel like based on my current and previous, my past and my previous experiences, this is where I feel it will be much more impactful and easy for USCIS to approve my case.
Yeah. So yeah, when I spoke to lawyers, then after that, I sent some documents. I had to write like statements of purpose and some of my career summary. Yeah. So those two things. Yeah, it was quite tedious. I won't say tedious, but like it's quite brainstorming because you have to think about the start of your career, everything you've done, try and put everything together and consolidate everything, and you have to make sure you make a very valid point out. So it took me a while. It even took me like 1 month before I actually finished. I was like, okay, I just sat down one day and I'll be like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna. So the lawyers actually tested. They're like, hey, we still expecting a response from you. I told them, oh yeah, I'll get back to them and everything. After like a month, I just decided one day. So it took me about 3 days to write everything. But first thing is I had to just start thinking about my research over time when I started, try and put all the information together, consolidate it, and also think about, okay, what's going to be the impact of my research. So right now I work with neuropathic pains, medicinal chemistry, basically looking for small molecules for neuropathic pains. So I kind of think, okay, how is this going to impact the my field and the importance of my research? So you just have to find a way to actually link everything together from where you started from, to where you are, to where you're gonna be, that you think you're gonna be, write a very meaningful statement of purpose. And definitely your career summary, you should know yourself better. You just summarize everything you've done in your career summary. And I gave it to the lawyers. And yeah, that was everything about that. Then after a while, it took them about 3 weeks, 2 weeks actually, to review everything and then send me back and told me to look at the review if it's okay. Then I did some few other corrections and I sent it back to them as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's more about when you, and I think it's always that kind of, it's always confusing in your head first. Like, okay, I did this, I did that, I am doing this.
I mean,
How can I merge everything together? And it
exactly.
becomes a little bit frustrating, but
And you
once you
have to form a story of it. Like you have to make a
right,
story out of it.
yeah, yeah. So in your case, once you decide, okay, today I'm going to write it,
Yes.
everything makes sense as you put it on paper.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah. Because I had to like jot out things I did already. Even like sometimes, like I had to go and read some of the articles I even wrote, like I published together, like, I even forgot about. Like just trying to, oh, I did this. That's right. I can link it to what I'm doing right now. You know.
I know. It's interesting, and I'm laughing because I have a question. So the truth of the matter is, when you and Doc, nobody knows Doc, he's a friend of ours. When you sent me your documentations and I was reviewing, right?
Yeah.
It was very, what is it, intimidating because
No, I like.
no, let me explain. Let me explain. It was intimidating because, come on, Israel, what you have done, right? It's very, very, I don't know the word to describe it. It's very good. And so is Doc. And so the question I have for you is, did you ever felt any intimidation when assuming did you okay, first of all, did you ask for documents from friends? Did you review the documents just to kind of give you some kind of directions and guidance? And what was the
Yeah.
feeling like reading others' work?
I think that's actually very important as well because I remember I spoke to Doc and Doc sent him most of his documents. And I kind of actually went through Doc's storyline, and I kind of found out, okay, he kind of started talking because he went to medical school
Yeah,
and
correct.
he did pre-med biochemistry. So he
Right.
started talking about his achievements when he was doing pre-med, then transformed the achievements and link it to when he started medical school. Then, things he did when he started working, as a doctor. And all the way was able to make a very interesting storyline.
Very, very
So like each paragraph is a storyline that links to the other one. So I'm like, okay, since the end of this paragraph is the beginning of the other one. Okay, let me start thinking about my own life too. What have I done?
exactly. Exactly. That
What
was
have
the
I done?
advantage there. But for me,
Just
reading, I'm
look how
like,
a template.
oh, this is somebody
Yeah.
whose case can never be denied.
It's good to actually have a template. Actually, it's very important. It's like, yeah, it can be a very good writer, but when you have a template, sometimes it just, kind of give you a heads up on,
Exactly.
what approach you need to write,
Exactly. 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 And I think personally, I stole some information from you and Doc. It's not like direct.
Right?
It's just
Yeah.
I see a
Yeah, I
sentence.
get.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to communicate this way. Let me borrow. But honestly, initially when I read through, I'm like, oh my goodness, look at this guy. He's a medical doctor. Now he's studying masters in
Yeah.
chemistry. He's doing this.
I, his name was very intimidating.
I'm like, where do I start?
That was very intimidating.
Man, I'm looking at his research work, and especially when I was reviewing recommendations from other people, I'm like, Jesus, who is going to write something like this for me? But I say this in laughter because when I started doing everything, I drafted my proposal nicely done. They were very happy with what I've done, and even with the recommendation, what other people wrote for me, it was mind blowing. So again, to your advice, it's important to have like a template when you
Yeah,
start this process. It gives you more like you have a
direction.
foreknowledge and forehand information as to how to position and write these up. But it should not be very intimidating. This is just an advice. I laugh over it because
Yeah.
it's funny, but it happens. But just make sure it is just an added value to what you're doing. Should you find a very useful template. So anyway, that was just by the way. Um, the next question I have is, and I know you have your green card now. You are already set. How is it feeling like to know
I,
you are done with school? When they ask you, do you now
I,
require
I,
sponsorship?
I
Like,
haven't seen the
no.
impact yet.
Really?
I still feel the same. I haven't seen the impact yet because
Are you
I'm
applying for roles? Are
I'm
you
I'm still in school, and technically I shouldn't be done until like sometime towards end of next year, if God allow. And it's like I'm still still doing the same thing I was doing, right from time, still living this. I feel like an F1. If I still get a message from the international office every time, and I'll be like, yes, yeah. They still have me S1 status probably in school. And I'm like, okay, it's whatever it is, but so I still do my thing, but I know like definitely it's still gonna, be very useful later on when I'm done with my program.
Yeah.
It just gives me a rest of mind, not thinking of what I want to do after school. Because yeah, I
Yeah.
think of what I want to do after school, but I don't have a limitation towards, based on status limitation towards
Yeah.
what I want to do after school. So that kind of gives me a rest of mind. And yeah, basically that's the only thing.
It's, it's a good feeling. Like you're still in school, probably when you're about finishing school, you know. And I've been joking with people like that portion where the companies ask you, do you now in the future require
The
sponsorship?
future
I
requires,
have no
yeah.
idea the feeling of when you are not lying because some people
Yeah.
like, no, I don't need it. That feeling of no, and you're so confident. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
need it. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's quite a feeling, and oh my
But
goodness,
it's a good thing actually for those people in probably in PhD program right now. I would say it's the earlier the better, especially if you have like an higher degree already, like a master's probably from your own country. Yeah, you don't really have to have a master's in America to actually apply. Like I said, I use my master from my own country. But I use both, but they consider my master from my own country first because that was where I got first. So like you don't really have to get a master's in the United States. If you have a master from your own country, just apply. As soon as you start your PhD program, you can wait till like a second year so you have more insight about your research, and try and make a very good storyline how your research is gonna be very helpful. If you're in science, you can talk about NIH, stuff like that. And if
let's
you're
say
like in other professions, or National Institute of Health,
okay.
so you can yeah,
I
that's where
got
we get
confused.
yeah, that's where you get like most of funds from. Like they're like one of the fundamental
Oh,
institutes. They
I
are,
see.
fund our research in science, core
Interesting.
science,
That's interesting.
basically medical sciences, health sciences, life sciences, basically. And also, if you're in other field, try and form, your research, your story on how it links with, other, the impacts of your research towards the progress of the United States. So that's why I put it that way. They try and form a very good storyline. First year, so if you start your first and second year, by the time you get to your fourth year, you're probably gonna get approved by then. And when
Yeah.
you're graduating your fifth year or your sixth year, probably depending on your research how it goes, and you have nothing to worry about regarding your status limitations. So
That's
yeah.
a good advice. Well, you took my next question and you've already answered the next question. With advice.
Okay.
I always tell people, don't wait till you finish your PhD program. You already have an
Yeah.
advantage with advanced degree. You already have an advantage of, research work. So please do it and do it now. And you will be happy you did it. My last question for you, basically is, and I know you use Alice Porter. People have different and varied views, especially people pursuing PhD. They advise if you are doing your PhD, you can actually do the petition yourself without using a lawyer. What
Yeah.
is your take on this?
So I usually tell people to consult the lawyers first, try and see their opinion. You know, even if they say no, they'll tell you places to work on. Even if you're gonna like do the self-petition, you'll be like, okay, I'm good with this area, I'm good with this area. The only thing why they said no was this area. Then you'll be like, okay, I can work on this and do the whole petition myself. And one of the major reasons why I haven't used lawyers was because my friend actually used a lawyer. And when I was gonna do the second stage, and the fee was it wasn't cheap for a student, but it kind of
Yeah.
made it very affordable for me. I paid within the span of 10 months, which so they are like, you could pay out once, you could pay like two installments or like 10 months. I was like, I'm a student.
10.
10 months. Yeah. I was paying for 10 months, which is quite, affordable, which was like less than $400 every month.
Wow.
And I could still put that together. So it was like that is still quite expensive, but they kind of made it very flexible. That's what I'm trying to say. They
Yeah.
kind of make it very flexible for yourself, for you. And yeah, so try and talk to lawyers, so whatever they say, whatever limitations they're talking about, think about how you can work better on that particular segment. And if you do that, just file for yourself. And even the second stage, you can do it yourself. I used the lawyer because I was preparing for the comprehensive exam in my
Gotcha.
third year. So I didn't even have time to start. So I was like, you know what? I'll just use the lawyer. And it's like way cheaper than the first one.
Yeah.
So, but I put the petition itself and the 485, which is the second stage,
Yeah.
it's something I tell people like, just do it for yourself, but talk to the lawyers to actually, evaluate your own self to see what your evaluation will be from the lawyers. Then after that, if they say yes, if you want to go with them, that's fine. But if they say no, just do it yourself. And I have like friends, like not close friends, but like, yeah, doctors' friends actually. Like two of doctors' friends actually did it themselves. They talked to Alice Potter and Alice Potter said no. So they actually did it themselves, did your petition, and they got approved. So they even got approved before mine was approved. That is the
Oh,
lawyers. Yeah. I mean, one of them actually got his own like within 3 months. So my own took about 8, 9 months. One of them took like about 3 months and it got
wow.
approved. I use lawyer. So it's not really about you using lawyer self-petition. It's all about like, how well you can
Put it
make your
together.
documents right and your story right. So you don't really necessarily have to use lawyers to make things, work.
Interesting. Yeah, and I know in your case you did like the normal processing. I think during your time there was no premium processing.
Yes,
Um,
there was no
it
premium,
was
and
after.
everything was
Yeah,
simultaneous. Yeah,
yeah. The premium process started just about when I was putting mine together, so that was helpful. So that's the reason why it took a while for Prof. Israel's work petition to be approved.
like bro.
Oh, okay. Don't make me change the title to doctor. Doctor is below you. But
I'm not even a doctor yet. I'm not even
but,
close.
but yeah, he used the normal processing route. That's why it took a longer time. But either way, his advice is if you feel confident enough to do it by yourself, please do. It's not really about who is doing it for you. It's all about how quality the data, the information you're putting together is. So again, same advice I offer. If you feel you have the money, you don't have the time, you don't have the confidence to do it, but you think you have the chance, use a lawyer. If, however, you feel money is not an issue, you have the time, you think you have a good case, please feel free and do it yourself. And to the point he's making about talk to a lawyer first. And this is something I've always been speaking about. Profile evaluation. It's $0 cost. It's free.
Yeah,
And I've
for
made a
free.
content on that. Just do it. The good thing is it helps you understand where you stand in terms of if you should go ahead and do it yourself, what are your chances of approval? Another good thing is they will tell you where your weaknesses are. So if it's like citations, bump it up. If it's about any other areas, bump it up. So please check out my content on profile evaluation, free profile evaluation. I also had some list of lawyers you can reach out to for these. It's $0 cost, no charge at all, and you're good. But yeah, I think that is all the questions I have. You've already given us your advice. The last thing I would like to end with, just in case somebody who is pursuing PhD in chemistry is kind of interested in contacting you. I don't know if you are very active on LinkedIn, that a person can reach out
Yeah.
to you, and if you're open to it.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Anyone interested, some of my friends actually talked to me as well, like in the same department, and I told them, whenever you're ready, just let me know. I have all the details and information you need for the application. So yeah, on LinkedIn, yeah, you can always message me on LinkedIn. Israel Laide, basically that's my name. Basically, that's what
Yeah,
I
it's
have on
actually
LinkedIn.
on
Yeah.
the Zoom that we are using. Your name is right
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
So
Thank
you
you.
can also reach out to me if you can't find his name. You can find him on LinkedIn. He's the only Israel Olaide on LinkedIn. No one. We should add doctor or professor. But anyways, no, thank you so much.
No problem. It's
Yeah,
thank
it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope
you.
people find this very useful and impactful, and that is the whole goal, to advise people to take their immigration into their own hands. Things are changing, and I'm sorry to say it's going to
Yeah, the
get
better.
harder. It's going to get harder and harder for companies to sponsor um, immigrants. So if you have an option to use this route to secure permanent residency, it's a peace of mind. Trust me, Israel has his peace of mind. He doesn't think about it. I am limited with time and stuff like that. So please, go ahead and do it. And
I tell people the earlier the better. You don't want to think about like, yeah, I'll start, next year. Let's how
yep,
things go. Once you feel like you have all the necessary requirements for you to actually proceed, just shooting for it. Like you don't really have to wait for anything else because immigration laws change. Different governments come in and they kind of change laws, stuff like that. So you really don't want to be affected because of a new government that's going to be affecting your application. So why don't you, do what you can do now as fast as possible?
that's the best advice right now to end it. Just do it now. You never know what is going to happen in the future. And I always tell people, you might think it's we are stressing you or something like that, but in the future you would see the value of why we always advise people to take the action now rather than waiting. But
Yeah.
anyways, thank you. I know you have a busy schedule and I don't want to spend so much time talking about this. But yeah, if anybody has any more questions, you can reach through me to Israel, or you can reach through him directly on LinkedIn. And then he'll answer any questions you have. Thank you for watching. And again, thank you, Israel. We have to meet in person. Come get,
Yeah. One of these days
yeah,
I'll
our
come
jollof rice is
around.
always the best. Come and eat our jollof rice. And after that, tell people how best Ghana.
Actually, that's not a lie. I think sorry, Nigerians. I think I've tried a lot of Ghanaian jollof rice. I think they're better.
Please say it again.
Just
They
for the
cannot hear you.
jollof.
I have to make this big.
I'm not betraying Nigerians, but I think the jollof. I was thinking the Ghanaians for now.
Thank you. Please, according to Israel, Ghana jollof rice is the best.
All right,
Thank you
have a
so
good day.
much. All right, take care. Have a good weekend. Bye
As
for
well.
now.
Thanks.
Mhm.